What's up guys, welcome back to another video, hope you're all doing well today. So the time has finally come where I've hit 1,000 hours on MX Bikes now. It's taken me just over a year. I want to say it's been about 13 months. I believe I started properly playing the game in November 2020, so I don't think that's bad going at all really. A couple hours a day I suppose for the most part. We'll see how many more years I've got in me and how many hours I get into eventually, but I thought it'd be a nice idea just to share what I've learned over the last year or so whilst trying to learn the game and get better. And I just thought I'd pass on some of that knowledge to you guys. I know a lot of you that watch the channel are very new to MX Bikes, or you're only just getting into it, or maybe there's just some things in here that you never knew of that maybe that it'll be a bit helpful for you. So these aren't in any kind of order or things like that, just a couple of ideas that I jotted down, things that I think are quite important when you're picking up the game or trying to get better. So first, straight off the bat, if you want to improve at the game, you need to challenge yourself. Now, I found the best way of doing this is to play the hardest tracks that I could find. A couple off the top of my head is 2013 Lommel is one track, for example. That was the first quote-unquote hard track that I really played on the game, and if anyone knows what Lommel's like in real life, it is an absolutely brutal sand track, and it's really one of them tracks that will help you learn how to manoeuvre the bike, and it'll really show you the difference between being 1 foot to the right or 1 foot to the left of where you're on the track. Line choice and flowing from corner to corner is very important around there. Exactly the same thing with another track like Oz. Oz is probably one of my more favourite tracks in the game actually. I've put a lot of time into it, but exactly the same as Lommel. Maybe a little bit harder just due to trying to get in the ruts. Some of the ruts can be quite difficult to follow, but it's one of them tracks where if you don't try and rush straight out of the gate, if you take your time and slowly build up your speed, you'll be absolutely fine. And then finally, one track that a lot of people probably don't play much at all, but is personally one of my favourites, got to be top 3 tracks of all time, is actually Kraken, so the full enduro track made by Resolute Kraken. Now, hear me out before you go and comment saying this isn't a track, what are you on about, blah blah blah. Krakenberg will teach you a hell of a lot about the low speed physics in MX Bikes, and anybody that's played the game for 10 minutes or more will 100% have been given their fair share of low speed physics issues in this game. Everyone knows that they're a little bit funky at times, but Krakenberg and Enduro as a whole has really helped me with the low speed physics and how I need to move the bike, move the rider around, so you don't kind of get spun off and go flying, or you're just a passenger and the bike does whatever it wants. So straight off the bat, if you want to get better, go and download those 3 tracks, give them a try, and I'll actually put links in the description for all of those for you guys to go and give a shot yourselves. The next tip I would probably give you guys is don't hop on the 450s straight away. It's one thing that I done when I first got the game. I wanted to get on the biggest and the best and the fastest bikes. The 450s in this game they're a little bit overkill. Like, they are so powerful, you can never utilise the full power of them. So I would say learn the game on the 125s, then maybe move up to 150, then the 254 stroke, 254 2-stroke, and then finally move up to the 450s once you've kind of mastered each bike along the way. Majority of my hours now on this game are on the 250, probably a good maybe 700 or so out of the 1,000 hours that I have, and it definitely shows in the riding. I'm much faster on a 250 than a 450. It will all come down to personal preference at the end of the day as well, but if you are starting from scratch, so to speak, I would highly recommend that you use the smaller engine bikes to begin with. Another tip I actually get quite a lot of comments on my videos actually. Max HUD is probably the most important mod that you will ever download for the game. I will put a link in the description for Max HUD as well, but essentially it just it's an overlay, so it just gives you extra HUD options. You can customize it as much as you like, toggle things on and off, move them about your screen. But I've got the times up at the top left. I usually have the standings of the races in the bottom left, so I can see what position I'm in. You can also run things like fuel in there, so I know how much fuel I have left, and they've got a slightly different speedo at the bottom right as well, rather than the standard one that comes with MX Bikes. And obviously there's more things in there that you can add or take away. It'll all be down to your preference as well, but 100% Max HUD is the most important mod that you can download, just to give you all the information that you need when you're riding or racing. Next, I just want to talk about how important really starts are in the game. I feel like a lot of people don't realise it enough. But if I take my last Supercross season, for example, I think I won maybe like 5 or so races that I'd done, and every single one of them wins came from a whole shot. If you haven't kind of sat down and spent maybe half hour or so kind of dedicating time to getting good starts and how to get good starts, you really need to do so. It will just change everything. You know what it's like if you go down in the first turn and you're kind of stuck at the back of the pack with some of the more wobbly people, and it can just get frustrating because you get caught up in the drama, you might crash a lot more. So if you can get better starts straight out of the gate and come out the corner top 5 rather than coming out the corner 20th, then you're saving yourself a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of headaches, and it'll just make your race easier as a whole. The suggestions I should give is just experiment with gears, so what gear you want to start in. A lot of the time on the 250 it's second gear, 450 will be second or third gear. You can experiment with what works best for you, and then just experiment with how far you want to be leant forwards or back on the bike as well. Usually you can just start with full throttle as long as you're leaning the right amount, and yeah, just practice makes perfect on those. Every single start is different. The terrain that you're on will highly impact how far you have to lean forwards and back as well. So every chance that you can, every time that you are on a new track, if you're practicing before a race starts, just go and ride over to the start gate and give it 2 or 3 attempts and see what works best for you. So then when you do get into the race, you'll have the best chance you can of getting a good start and maybe even the whole shot and making your life a whole lot easier. Now, another quick little riding tip is if you find yourself landing jumps and tucking the front end, or landing jumps and bouncing about quite often, then just try as much as you can to land front wheel high and leaning forwards. I'm not sure the reason why it helps at all, but it's something that you'll pick up with more and more time in the game. But the more you can land on your back wheel first, front wheel high, leaning forwards, it will greatly decrease the wobble that you get, or the bounces that you get, which I like to call the Poboso bounce. Not copyrighted, so you call it whatever you want, but definitely give that a shot. I should have some footage in the background whilst I'm talking here saying, or kind of showing how you should be landing. And to land front wheel high, or to lift the front wheel up in the air, then just lean forwards. It sounds a bit contradictory, it sounds like you'd go over the bars, but if you lean forwards it'll bring that front wheel up and it will make your landings a whole lot smoother. Something that's quite helpful as well, depending on what you're going for when you're testing, is changing the erode multiplier. Now, I've done some videos on turning it up to like 5 times erode or 20 times erode just to make the track rougher, but you can also do the opposite. If you change it to 0 times, then it removes the erode completely. So if you find yourself getting a bit annoyed that in testing that you keep having to reset the track, maybe you're going for hot laps and you want the track as fresh as possible, then change the erode multiplier to 0 and it will completely eliminate that. And then again, if you want the track to be rougher, then maybe turn it to 2, 3, 4. And if you want to just go balls to the wall and go a little bit silly with it, then you can put it up to 20. I think you can put the numbers as high as you want. However, the cap in-game is 20. So even if you put the number 100, for example, it will still only be 20 times deformation. Now, playing against better people is another tip I would give you. I by no means know absolutely everything that there is in the game. And every time I go in a lobby I will always learn something from someone. So if you do have the chance, go online as much as you can, maybe do some organised races that happen on the MyMXB website as well, and just watch people, see what they do, see what lines they take. You will always find someone taking a different line to you, and majority of the time you'll find that if you try it, it might be quicker. I know I personally get stuck in a rut. That's no pun intended there. But I find myself taking the same lines lap in and lap out without experimenting a whole lot. And I'll watch someone else and they might do a corner quicker than me. So yeah, just watch people, play against better people. You might find that they pull you along as well, and you end up going faster and riding at their speed. But yeah, definitely try and play online, try and do races, play against people that are better than you, and that in turn will make you faster as well. Consistency is king on this game, especially when it comes to organised races where you're playing against more of a high quality field of riders. Now, I know it's tempting just to go as fast as you can, especially if you get like the whole shot, for example. You just want to pull away as quick as possible. Just try and slow yourself down for a second. Maybe if you run 1 or 2 seconds laps slower than you would like to, but don't crash, in the long run throughout a race, that is much better than trying to go 2 seconds quicker, but crashing every lap and then losing about 5 seconds. So just try and pace yourself a bit, try and be smooth and consistent, and then with the consistency you'll find yourself getting faster and faster as well, so then your consistent pace will be faster than when it started. And yeah, just big emphasis on being consistent in this game. Another thing that I get asked quite a lot actually is what setup I'm running, And I can't emphasize enough that the stock setup that comes with the OEM bikes in this game are actually really, really good to use. You'll find quite a lot of pros, they don't have a setup for every track and every bike, and I would just say using the stock setup, 1 or 2 changes is all you need. Now, if I'm using a bike that I don't usually use, so I've got no setup for it, I will turn the front tyre pressure down by 1. Don't know why, don't know how much it affects it, but it's something that I've always done. Maybe it's a placebo thing for me, but I feel like it stops the front end from tucking so much. Try and find a gear ratio that you're happy with. I can't tell you what the best gear ratio is, that is all on you guys, you'll have to find that yourself. And then also choose what mapping you like. On the 250s, I usually go aggressive. On 450s, I will go like mellow. That's all down to personal preference as well. But then the final thing that is usually quite important is the swing arm length. If you want the bike to be a bit more stiff and not turn quite as tight, then put the swing arm length on 2. If you want it to turn tighter, put it on 1. And then obviously if you want it to turn even tighter than that, put it on 0. And those are really the only settings that you need to be changing bike to bike. The stock suspensions are really, really good. And the people that made the OM bikes in the first place made sure that they set the suspensions up so they actually do a good job. And finally, we have, in the words of The Rock, put in the work and put in the hours. Now, it might sound a little bit cheesy, but at the end of the day, you are only going to get better at the game by putting the work in. Now, 1,000 hours in, I'm still learning things. There's still people that are better than me, and I've probably still got a long way to go as well. So I cannot emphasise enough, just put the time into the game. I quite often see people saying that they've got maybe 20 to 50-ish hours, and they're not making any progress, and they give up, and that's it, they don't touch the game again. Just try and stick with it as much as you can. I promise you that it'll be worth it in the end, and you'll get some sense of achievement once you can do multiple laps without crashing. Some people pick up the game quicker than others, it just depends who you are. Some people might have played MX Simulator before, for example, where that's quite a hard game to learn, so the transition to MX Bike is a bit easier. But I know some of you are coming from games like MXGP or Supercross, so the game's actually quite hard for you. So just put the time in, you know, at an hour or so a night, 2 hours, depending on how much free time you've got, and your muscle memory will slowly start to build itself up. And yeah, maybe 100 hours in or so, you'll be able to go around majority of tracks with no problem at all. So just stay dedicated to it, put in the work, and then I lied about that being the last one. The last one, and the most important one, is of course Subtolins. Peace.
Got bad shit all up in my mind right now. Fuck it, give me a minute and I'ma let it all out. I don't give a shit about an opinion, be another dimension when I wake up, wake up, wake up. Bitch, it's time to fill the cup. Got no fucking love, I feel so stuck on my luck. Get fucked.